Hello my dear friends and welcome back to another Star Wars video. So today we are returning to Andor Season 2. Yes, the show has come to an end, but in the last 24 hours, we've had a ton of new information. The writer of the finale, Tom Bissell, has just confirmed an enormous fan theory that concerns Luthen and Kleya's flashbacks. During my full episode breakdown for episodes 10, 11 and 12, I spoke about the importance of seeing some of Luthen and Kleya's origins, how they met, their dynamic, their father and daughter kind of relationship, and how they sold antiques out of necessity. But there was one flashback which stood out amongst all the others. We finally got a live action return to Naboo. As a prequel fan, I was over the moon. But did you know, the return to Palpatine's home planet was deliberate. It wasn't thrown in for fan service, it was handpicked by the writer for a narrative purpose. Luthen chose to set off an explosive on the homeworld of the Emperor to put out a dramatic statement. Tom Bissell confirms Luthen had a deep hatred of the Sith who ruled the galaxy. It was very much personal, a middle finger to the planets that bred the monster who became Darth Sidious. And we also know, guys, the flashback takes place in 18 BBY, so 1 year after the declaration of the Empire, 1 year after Revenge of the Sith. Luthen wanted to stick his thumb into the eye of the one person he hates more than anything. Tom recalls he suggested the idea to Tony Gilroy, and the showrunner loved it. It's very poetic, and puts out a very strong statement. Now we could just say, okay great, makes sense. Sergeant Leia, turned Luthen Rail, this former Imperial Army guy, is fed up of a regime and wants to take it down. So he goes to the homeworld of Palpatine, sets off an explosive, causes chaos, and that's that. But I want to take things a bit further. I want to explain to you guys why Naboo was so crucial during 18 BBY, but also the reasons why, to some extent, Luthen's act of aggravation on Naboo was meaningless to Palpatine. So let's dive into it. Aside from Operation Cinder after Episode 6, there is surprisingly little information known in Disney Star Wars canon about Naboo during the Age of the Empire. We know a lot about the actions of the Handmaidens, especially Sabe. And in terms of politics, we also know that Panaka from the prequel trilogy became allegiant to the Empire and became a Moff. In 3 BBY, he was assassinated by Saw Gerrera's partisans. Not to mention, my dear friends, the hidden Jedi path may have also had a presence there, because in The Mandalorian Season 3, Kelleran Beck rescued Grogu from Order 66 with the help of Naboo guards, and Kelleran said,
"We're gonna meet up with some friends of mine."
So it's very possible, like in Legends, Queen Apelana, the queen of Naboo at the time, was secretly helping rebels and surviving Jedi. In the expanded universe, Queen Apelana remained loyal to the Empire on the surface, but secretly, she harbored doubts about the new regime. Throughout her reign, government buildings and organizations on Naboo continued to refer to the Republic, and not the Empire. Like I said, she also helped to smuggle survivors of the Great Jedi Purge. I hope they bring this into canon. That being said, harboring fugitives made her a target. She was killed by the 501st in the same year Luthen was there, in 18 BBY. She was then replaced by a puppet ruler called Queen Kylantha. She was entirely imperial, and during her reign there was an attempted genocide on the Gungans. In both canon and the expanded universe, for the most part, Naboo remained loyal to Palpatine. They saw him as one of their own. The Emperor of the Galaxy is from our home planet, and most of the upper class couldn't tell the difference between the Republic and the Empire. So you might think, Luthen setting off a bomb would have been detrimental to Palpatine. Quite the opposite. The Emperor didn't care about his home planet, just as he'd been doing since The Phantom Menace. He only cared about Naboo when it was convenient. It was just used as a leveraging tool for him. He didn't care about Naboo in any meaningful or patriotic sense, and that is explicitly stated in the Darth Plagueis novel. So Luthen's actions in the flashback would probably have gone down as a small attempted insurrection. There would have been 2 different responses, and I'm interested in both. Palpatine wouldn't have cared, but the ISB would have. The very early ISB would have investigated. They were hypersensitive to rebellion, snuffing out what they call the disease before it spreads. There was probably a harsh crackdown on civilians and suspected rebel sympathizers. And if you read the book, Leia, Princess of Alderaan, the Empire and the regional Moff, Panaka, suspected certain rebel activity, even from politicians and monarchs. And Luthen's actions would have fed into that, but there would have been something of a local response. Some might argue there would have been a smaller response, maybe propaganda blaming outside agitators. It may have caused a little local ruckus, but it's not as if it was Theed's palace. I don't think Palpatine would have given a flying quackter, to be honest. And remember this, my dear friends, the entire purpose of that specific flashback was one of the most important conversations between Luthen and Kleya. It's a moment where he tests her faith. Is she ready for this life? Is she aware of the implications of everything to come? In the moment, it's also a lesson for Kleya. How to time the perfect attack, how to be nonchalant, come across as a passerby, don't implicate yourself. Elizabeth Dulau, the actress who plays older Kleya, mentioned there were originally going to be more flashbacks in episode 10, but in the end they only left in the flashbacks that demonstrate the building blocks of who they become, who they are by the time of Andor Season 1. But like Tom Bissell says, the Naboo flashback was largely symbolic. And I have to wonder, if Luthen was aware of Palpatine's origins, do you think he also hated Jar Jar Binks? In the same episode where Dedra Meero visits the shop on Coruscant, did you notice the Gungan skull that Luthen had on display? And no, this is not Jar Jar Binks. In canon, as we know from the Aftermath trilogy, Jar Jar Binks is alive after Return of the Jedi. He's a street performer on Naboo, a shame street performer, someone who regrets giving emergency powers to Palpatine back in the day. I wonder if Luthen remembers that, and maybe putting a thumb in the eye of Palpatine was kind of like a double whammy. It's like, screw Palpatine, but also screw Senator Jar Jar freaking Binks. But look, anytime Palpatine was involved with Naboo, since he was a kid, it was always done to further his own power, and to further the agenda of the Sith. I mean, like I said, think all the way back to episode 1. The invasion of Naboo was just the backdrop to orchestrate a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum. Essentially, to old Sheevy boy, Naboo was a casus belli. Oh, there's a juicy term, something which is used to provoke or justify a war. But the moment I think was very important. It was great. I still think episode 10 is the best episode of the entire show, or maybe top 3. I know that's a very bold declaration. Only the Narkina 5 arc, or maybe the Gorman Massacre can rival it, but to my mind, episode 10 was one of the most perfect episodes of Star Wars live-action television. Okay, so now we're going to move on to another tidbit. Tony Gilroy answered a question which many Star Wars fans have had since the show first aired. What does George Lucas think of it? This comes during a time of a big debate which I've spoken about in a previous video. What is Star Wars? Does it need the Force? Does Andor deviate too much from the space fantasy elements to be considered true Star Wars? And the question that always comes along with this is, does George Lucas like it? Is the maker himself a fan of Tony Gilroy's show? And Tony replied, I don't know, not even rumour-wise. I've only spoken to him once, after Rogue One. I spoke to him on the phone. He was congratulating us, but no, I've never met him, and I've never talked to him about it. And if you guys don't know, George Lucas was a huge fan of Rogue One. We don't get too many comments from him these days on various Disney Plus Star Wars projects. We know he loved Obi-Wan Kenobi. Apparently, seeing his characters from the prequel trilogy continued made him very happy. And you know, with George, it can go either way. He had very unique tastes. Just because we like something, it doesn't necessarily mean George would have the same opinion. The Obi-Wan show is a great example of that. Many fans of the Legends book say it was an abomination, and yet the creator of the franchise actually enjoyed it. So does George Lucas like Andor? It's anyone's guess. I'm gonna say he probably enjoyed the political stuff. If he's a fan of Rogue One, there's plenty for him to enjoy in this show. But for all we know, he has the criticism that there weren't enough lightsabers. It's anyone's guess. Tony Gilroy being honest and saying, I don't know, he never reached out. But those are a few new reveals. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you had fun. Share your thoughts in the comments down below, my dear friends. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new. Check me out on socials. The link to my Patreon is down below. But until the next one, may the Force be with you, always.